What is up, everyone? It's Monday again, but no Monday meta update today because it's almost time for the next set to come out. So we're going to talk about some more of the cards that are spoiled so far and some thoughts about them. Next week, we'll have the 5 new brews for March of the Machines. So make sure you check that out as well. And then in just a couple weeks, we're going to have the early access event. So stay tuned for that also. What is up, folks? So, as I mentioned, no Monday meta update, but we are going to talk about the blue cards that have been previewed so far that I have found very interesting and seem powerful and are likely to see play in the coming set. So, the first one is this Chrome Host Seed Shark. This is a 3 mana flying 2/4. It's a Phyrexian shark. So we got our second shark, I believe, of all time, maybe, or at least the second most prominent one. And it has some text that says, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, incubate X, where X is that spell's mana value. So this looks a lot like Shark Typhoon. Of course, it's a little bit weaker than Shark Typhoon in the sense that it doesn't immediately give you the shark tokens. However, it is 3 mana to cast. It has a decent body. It's flying. And you get almost the same thing with a little bit of mana investment. So every time you cast a non-creature spell, you're going to be making these tokens. And you pay 2 mana, and you can flip those tokens over, and they turn into actual creatures. So in some ways, that's even scarier because your opponent never knows when you're going to pay that 2 mana to flip them over. Anytime you are not tapped out, and you're holding up mana, you could have a counterspell, and if they do nothing, then you get to flip these tokens over. So, very powerful ability, very strong synergy with like a control type deck. So I could definitely see this in there. You'll have to figure out when you can cast it effectively, maybe turn 5 or something like that. So you can play this and hold up some mana to cast like a 2 mana spell. But yeah, seems very good. It's gonna fit somewhere, I'm sure. Very cool card. Very good rate just for the body. It's pretty solid. So awesome. So that's the first one that I am very interested in. Let's look at the next one. Next one is Corruption of Tawashi. I'm not sure the correct way to say it. I guess it'd be Towashi. So it's 4 and a blue, and it says when Corruption of Towashi enters the battlefield, incubate 4. So you get a upside down 4/4 counter basically, and you can pay 2 mana to flip that. And it has it's an enchantment with this effect. Whenever a permanent you control whenever a permanent you control transforms or a permanent enters the battlefield under your control transformed, you may draw a card, and do this only once each turn. So it's 5 mana. You get a 4/4 that you have to pay 2 mana to flip. When you do flip it, you draw a card. So kind of like a 7 mana for a 4/4 that draws a card, which is bad, right? That's not good. However, you could potentially have like a Saga already on the battlefield, or you could have some other incubate tokens that are on the battlefield, and that way you're going to get a lot more than just one card off of this. Of course, you can only do once per turn, but you can do I believe you can flip the incubate tokens on the opponent's turn. Yeah, it looks like it doesn't have any restriction on that. So yeah, you can have your sagas flipping, you can flip your tokens. I guess it works with the werewolves because it says if it enters transformed. And I believe that the night-day cycle is transforming, so that's probably what that's referring to. So maybe there's like a blue-black werewolf transform deck, some sort of transform deck. I'm not sure. You'd want sagas too, so maybe it would have to be like Grixis. Yeah, not sure, but essentially, if you can have just a few things in your deck that synergize with this and they're transforming, you're going to draw a decent amount of cards off of it. So it's interesting. I'll say it's interesting. Might be too slow. Seems a little bit slow, but basically getting cards for free off of your other cards' effects is pretty decent. And having the Incubate 4 tied to it means you're not getting nothing out of this card. It's not just to do nothing. So interesting. I'll say interesting. Okay, next one, Errant and Giada. So this is one of those team up cards that they made where it's two legendary creatures working together. And it's one blue and a white for a 2/3 flying creature with flash. It's an angel and a human, so both relevant types. And it says you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may cast spells with flash or flying from the top of your library. So essentially, if you can have some sort of flash deck, then this card is going to be perfect in that deck. I don't know if there's any Angel Flash deck. I mean, there's the other Giada card. It's not Flash. But there's definitely quite a few Flash cards of recent. And I think there's a few that are like human soldiers. So maybe you could do something with that. It's also blue-white. And there was a few, one of the adversary, the blue adversary was Flash. So yeah, I think there's probably a decent amount of Flash creatures that would synergize decently well with this. And definitely if you played this in Historic, I'm sure you could find some good Flash creatures. I mean, we just got the new Snapcaster Mage. That's a really good Flash creature that would work with this. There's also a lot of spirits in Historic that are have Flash. So yeah, I think this card has potential to see play in Standard and maybe also in Historic somewhere. And if you can get a good Flash deck, then it's just a really solid card. All right. Next one, Fairy Mastermind. Oh, speaking of Flash, I forgot about that. We have this Fairy Mastermind. This is Yuta Takahashi's World Championship card. He loves fairies, so this is right up his alley. It's a 2/1 for 2 mana, flash flying. And whenever opponent draws their second card each turn, you draw a card. And then it has a 4 mana ability where each player draws a card. Basically makes you draw 2 cards. Yeah, so this is flash, so this would work with that last card we just talked about. It's a pretty decent stat, 2 mana, 2/1 flash flying. And it has upside of basically drawing you cards, especially if the opponent doesn't kill it. Kind of reminds me of Spectral Sailor, 2 mana Spectral Sailor. So I think it's D. Spectral Sailor was a strong card. I think this could be a pretty good card. And if we have a few more flash creatures in standard, then yeah, we might see a flash deck, flash tempo or something. But cool, yeah, go Yuta. That was so exciting to watch him win last year. Okay, next card. So we're doing blue, but I'm also doing the blue adjacent cards. So this is a blue-red card. This is Invasion of Kaladesh. When Invasion of Kaladesh enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. And whenever you deal 4 damage to this battle, then it flips over and it turns into Aetherwing Golden Scale Flagship, which is a star 4 flying artifact vehicle. And its power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. So this is 1 artifact, so you're always going to be at least a 1/4. And if you still manage to keep that 1/1 Thopter, this will be a 2/4. And it can also crew this, because the crew is a cost of 1. So yeah, it's a pretty solid vehicle. I mean, if you have some sort of artifact synergy with like the blood tokens, with Saheeli, this latest Saheeli was really good at generating tokens and doing stuff with artifacts. So I could see this fitting right into that. There was like a Grixis artifact tokens deck that I had that was working well, and I know a couple people got to Mythic with that. So it's definitely a solid list that you could throw this into. Could be a good finisher for the Anvil decks. One of their problems was they were a little bit too slow at finishing the game. So yeah, you could maybe have this as your finisher. Crew 1, you can use one of the tokens to crew it and then swing in for like 5 or 6 power depending on how many artifacts you have. So yeah, seems really solid. This next one is another battle. This is a 2 and a blue for Invasion of Segovia. When Invasion of Segovia enters the battlefield, create 2/1/1 blue Kraken tokens with trample. And you have to deal 4 damage to flip this one. So 3 mana for 2/1/1 tokens is pretty good. The rate is usually like when you have a bad token generator, it's 3 mana for 2 tokens, and you have a good one, it's 2 mana for 2/1/1 tokens. But these ones do have trample. Kraken type matters not so much usually, but sometimes. The trample, I guess, is good if you can pump these up. And then if we flip it, then you get this 3/3 creature, and non-creature tokens you cast have Convoke. So now you can use those tokens to convoke your spells. And at the beginning of your end step, untap up to 4 target creatures, meaning you basically get 4 mana back because, as we just said, you can use those to cast your spells. So I can kind of imagine this in some sort of Izzet or blue-black or blue-white spells type deck. That's a token generating type deck with maybe the Wandering Emperor, Eternal Wanderer, whatever other things will generate tokens, Wedding Announcement, all that kind of stuff. So you're making these tokens, and you just need to get 4 damage to flip it. Once you flip it, then basically all of your spells get really cheap because you have so many things to convoke. So seems pretty solid to me, and even just having the 1/1s could be good to slow the game down if you need to find your board wipe or something like that. So it's not like dead if you don't have it. All right, pretty cool. So I am liking the approach they're taking to these blue cards. I do wish there were a little bit more cool Demir style cards with like stealing things from graveyards or from people's decks or stuff like that, like Thief of Sanity type of effects. But some of these have been pretty interesting to see that they're not just going for straight flyers or straight, I don't know, flash random things. So yeah, it's been pretty cool. Okay, this next one, Omen Hawker. It's a blue for a 1/1. And it has a very interesting ability. Tap, add a colorless and a blue mana, but spend this only to activate abilities. So it is like a pretty powerful ramp creature in the right deck, but you need something to activate with it. Currently, I don't know that many creatures with activated abilities that I can think of. I mean, I think there's a few creatures that didn't see a lot of play, which was like pay 2 mana, discard a card, draw a card, or pay 2 mana, sacrifice an artifact and draw a card, or stuff like that. I think there was one Sphinx card that came out in the last set, which had like a 1 mana activated ability to try one and draw a card, I believe. So I'll have to do some digging to see what activated abilities. A lot of times in the past, activated abilities haven't been that good because they don't do something when you immediately play it. And unless they were really cheap, where you could pay the activated ability right when you cast the card, then they didn't see a lot of play. But if you have a ramp like this, it would be pretty interesting. I guess it can also pay for like equipment or maybe some enchantment that has an activated ability as well. So we'll have to see if there's any cards in this new set that have these that we'd want to activate. But definitely it's interesting. I think it's the first time they've ever done something like this. And definitely a 1 mana creature that gives you 2 mana. That's pretty crazy. So there's gotta be something busted with that. Maybe in Historic or Pioneer we can find something really busted with that. A really cool card. Definitely really cool. All right, the next one, C double. This is a card I'm not sure is going to be good. It might be bad, but it has a pretty cool effect, something that we haven't really seen yet. So it's 4 mana. This spell can't be copied. It's an instant, and you can choose one of the abilities, or if the opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, you can choose both. Now we did see something similar to that in the Throne of Eldraine set, where I think it was Demir cards, yeah. They got more powerful based on how many cards were in the opponent's graveyard. Usually the threshold was, I think, 8. For example, Drown in the Lock got more powerful. Then there's the draw spell. I'm trying to blank on the name of that draw spell. See the Future? No, I don't think that's right. But it was like, what was it? Like 6 mana, but if they had 8 or more cards in their graveyard, it got dropped down to like 4 mana. Darn it, I'm totally drawing a blank on that. I should have pulled the card up. But there was a lot of cards like that in Throne of Eldraine where they get cheaper the more cards that the opponent has in their graveyard, or if they reach a certain threshold. Um, yeah, it's gonna kill me that I can't think of that card. Put it in the comments. I totally forgot what it is, but put it in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, anyway, if they meet that threshold, you get to do both abilities. And what do you get? You get to copy target spell and choose new targets for the copy. And you get to copy a token that's create a token that's a copy of a target creature. So you want to cast this when the opponent's casting some spell. Could be a counter spell. Could be just some like invoke despair, for example. And if they have some creature on the battlefield, then you can get that creature, copy that creature, and you get to copy their invoke despair and cast it on them. So it pretty solid ability there for 4 mana if you can get both sides of it. So yeah, pretty cool. We'll have to see if it's good or not though. Okay, the next one, Temporal Cleansing. This is 3 in a blue. The reason this one is cool is because it has Convoke. And it says the owner of target non-land permanent puts it in their library second from the top or on the bottom. This is a really sweet card. Many people probably don't know how powerful this ability is, but it's actually really, really powerful, especially in blue decks. It is sorcery. That is a downside, but the Convoke is really, really sweet because, I mean, we just saw the other card gives you 2 tokens, Wedding Announcement gives you tokens. So if you can get this even just 1 mana cheaper, it's still pretty good. Putting someone's creature or non-land permanent, not even a creature, in their deck, second from the top or at the bottom. We had like Commit to Memory did the same kind of thing for 4 mana. Yes, that's an instant, so it's a little bit better. But the fact that you can get this down to 3 or 2 or even 1 mana is really, really powerful. So I would say this is probably the only good blue removal we've really seen in a long time, and I'm all for it, so I'm really happy about this. I think blue has been pretty dunked on in the last few sets. They haven't got any of their good removal. We used to have like, back when I first started playing Magic, there was a card called Time Ebb. It was 3 mana and would put the non-land permanent on the top of the opponent's library. And that card was sweet, and it was actually kind of good at that time. And yeah, it's just a good way to deal with things that have like death triggers, or with things that are just really expensive and you want to just put it back, make them cast it again. They can't even recast it the turn you use it. They have to draw it again. So this kind of effect is pretty sweet. And second from the top, even better, because it's going to take them longer to get their card again. All right, Zephyr Stinger. This is a flying creature with 3/4 with Convoke. A lot of these Convoke cards we're gonna see are pretty sweet cards. Flying Vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, put a flying counter on each creature that convoked it. So you want to spend at least 2 of the mana to convoke, get this down for 2 mana, and the other 2 creatures get flying. It's just a solid way to give your creatures evasiveness and probably end up winning the game because you're going to fly over all the enemy's creatures. Flying is pretty powerful, especially in this format where there's not a lot of green decks which have reach and stuff like that. So you could steal some wins that you shouldn't have gotten just from having flying, giving some crazy creature flying like your Graveyard Trespasser or something. Could be very sweet. So I'm all for it. Decent statted body, really good ability. I think it's a solid card. All right, we got about I think two or three more. So this is Zimone and Dina. This is a black, a green, and a blue. So it's a Sultai. It's a 3/4 body, so pretty good stats for 3 mana. Whenever you draw your second card, target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. And if they don't kill it immediately, then you get this sacrifice ability, sacrifice another creature, draw a card. Then you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. If you control 8 or more lands, repeat this process. So yeah, this is just really solid. Basically, it's a must kill. If they don't kill it, you're gonna be getting some insane value off of it. Uh, maybe even good enough to make Sultai a thing. Like this card is really solid. It's got the engine and it's got the payoff. And the payoff is really, really good. So maybe we're gonna see Sultai control or Sultai midrange just get really good from this. This card is insane. Yeah, enough said. All right, Zergo and Ojutai. So this is a dragon. Ojutai is was the blue-white dragon before, and it had hexproof, so they kind of kept the same thing. Flying haste 4/4. It has hexproof as long as it entered the battlefield this turn, and it had haste, so it's gonna have hexproof the first turn you swing in. Whenever one or more dragons you control deal combat damage to a player or battle, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Then you may return one of those dragons to its owner's hand. So you cast it for 5 mana, you get to swing it immediately as hexproof, so they can't kill it. You get a card, basically, from your deck for free, and you can choose if you want to bounce it back. So if you're winning on board, you can afford to bounce it back so that they can't kill it on their turn, and you can do it again. But maybe you just want to keep the body or force them to use removal. You still got a card out of it, so it's not a huge deal, and you can let them kill it. So it's up to you. You have a lot of choice on how you want to play it out, and that's gonna make it, excuse me, pretty solid and pretty hard to deal with. So yeah, it's a cool card and lots of good value. 5 mana, but the value is worth it. So I think this will be a pretty solid card in some sort of Jeskai mid-range deck, most likely. Oh, it could even maybe fit in some control. The control hasn't been that good recently, so hard to say, but maybe. All right, the last one, Baral and Karizev. Sorry, Baral and Karizev. So this is the infamous pirate with the monkey Ragavan. And the card is very interesting. Baral was always a cool card. 1 blue red for 2/4 human, has first strike and menace, so decent stats, decent price. And whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery each turn, you can cast a spell with lesser mana value that shares a card type from your hand. So you can cast another card from your hand for free. If you don't, you create this 2/1 monkey until end of turn. Or no, not till end of turn. Forever. Get the 2/1 monkey and it gains haste. And probably that's what you're going to do most of the time. I don't know why you would want the free spell when you can get a free monkey. So I think you'll probably just take the monkey, and if somebody kills it, then you just make another monkey and just keep going like that. But yeah, that's pretty crazy. So that's a lot of stats for free, and it's kind of annoying and hard to deal with because it has first strike, and seems like a really solid card. So we'll see where the home is. I'm not sure about that. Hasn't been that good. To be honest, a lot of these cards that are very strong haven't had a good home in a long time. Because blue white's been dominating, mono red's been dominating, Grixis has been dominating. Mostly just the black red part of it. The blue is just a splash for a little bit of counterspell. So I really hope the blue in this set is enough to make blue decks good again, but we haven't seen that for a long time. We'll see. But that's it for the blue spoilers. As I mentioned, we'll have the other colors coming out soon. Next week will be the 5 new brews for the new set, and then the early access event is coming up. I don't know the exact date, but I think it's like the 17th, probably the weekend after next. So I'll let you know when I find out more about that. But yeah, stay tuned for that. Till next time, though, you go out there, have some fun on the ladder, and see ya.